Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. It's Fran here, and of course we're going to start the stream. As we kind of approach the looming deadline for fantasy, and of course the finals of the Euros. So absolutely huge match, of course, as we all know. I mean, I think when you looked at England kind of seated in their side of the bracket, you thought that there was a very strong chance for them to make it through given the fact that they beat Germany. And then for Italy, I think heading into the kind of live stages of the playoffs, we thought Italy were probably one of the better teams. And I think a lot of people conventionally thought that the winner of Belgium Italy would also reach the finals. And in theory, that did happen. But I think we saw Italy struggle a little bit versus Spain, which was a good sign, I think, in my opinion. Um, and then also with England too, I think Denmark did put on quite an admirable performance, but we saw the difference in quality of both teams as we reached later on into the stage of the game where people like Jack Grealish were subbed on, and then Denmark you could clearly see a difference in their substitutes. But now, of course, it's just that kind of phase where we start to hope for the lineups to come out a little bit earlier than usual. We make those kind of transfers that would be critical to securing, I think, the best kind of position in our leagues as possible. I think for most of you guys as well, just from the kind of comments that I'm seeing so far, it seems like you guys are first or second place in your league. So it's also about making sure you have the right game plan for this window because if you have a lot to catch up with in terms of distance, you could really go all in completely towards one team. That's not illogical at all. Um, but you also want to make sure you bet based on, I think, reasonable outcomes of the game. And as we kind of mentioned in our YouTube video earlier, I think we do expect the game to be quite a low scoring affair, in my opinion. So, I mean, how are you guys doing, anyways? You guys doing well? And how do you guys, and what are you guys cheering for in terms of the teams? What do you think about Jorginho instead of Barella? So I think the only kind of interesting attribute of Jorginho is that he does take penalties for Italy. So if I do show you, for example, the Italian penalty takers, it'll tell you that Jorginho is the glued on penalty taker. So let's look at Italy penalty shooters. So no penalties in this season, but if we look at 2018-19, you can see Jorginho was clearly the penalty taker in key games. And I'll also remind you that in this game as well here versus Armenia, that Immobile was actually in the game. So I think that's the one redeemable factor. But what I would say as well, like just from watching Italy this tournament, it's most of the touches in the box are done by either, let's say, someone like Insigne or maybe Immobile. And I think Insigne sometimes likes to play a little bit just outside of the box, so he allows for Emerson to kind of go in behind him on the left. And then I think Immobile doesn't seem like he's really capable of drawing a penalty. So I think that kind of argument is something I might struggle with a little bit in terms of picking Jorginho. Whereas Barella, I still see attacking involvements from him, even though he has a very physical game style, and one could argue that he is quite, or has been looking quite leggy as of late. What's up, Joe? How are you doing? Roy, who are you wanting to win? I honestly, I don't mind who wins. I think it would be quite interesting if England wins, of course, because I think Italy have historically won a lot of trophies. They've won the European Cup. They've won the World Cup 4 times as well. So I think I'd be quite happy to see England winning, to be honest. But I wouldn't be dismayed if Italy won either. I'm a bit more impartial to the tie than most. I see you guys are mostly supporting Italy, it seems. Trippier is going to start, I'm hearing. That's very interesting. So do you think they're going to play a back five then? Do you guys think England will play a back five? And do you think Mount will be dropped then if they play a back five? Because that's a talking point as well. I hope you guys haven't locked in your transfers yet. Obviously, the key on this day is simply just to wait for the deadline and then make our kind of transfers. It's going to be interesting, though. England seemed very strong with five at the back. Did you think they looked very strong with five at the back? Because I think the only kind of game we saw was the Germany game, and I actually thought the Germany game was quite balanced. I don't know how you guys feel about that one. What should I focus on if I need 6 subs off, but I've only got 5? Who do you have in your team presently, Roy? Do you have? I assume you have most of the big hitters for England. So I think if you're talking about substitutes from the Italians, perhaps we could discuss that. I'd prioritize getting the Italian wingers on. I'd prioritize getting Kane and Sterling on. And once you have those kind of four players, in my opinion, Insigne, Chiesa, Sterling, and Kane, I think those are your four kind of glued on midfielders and attackers. And then you can think more a little bit about defenders, especially since I expect that the game will probably go into a phase where I think it's going to be low scoring and one team is going to try and hold out for the victory. You've sent your team on Twitter. Yeah, we'll have a look at that in a bit. Who should be captain if you are 7 points off the top? I think you have to kind of factor in who's on the top of your team, like who's on the top of your private league and what team he currently has in place, and whether or not you think he will cheer for Italy and or England. Do you know what I mean? So it really depends on what your situation is, not necessarily just the points. So if you could elaborate a little bit on that, then we can help you out with there. How has your lineup changed since 2 days ago? I haven't changed it at all because I've actually been waiting for the team to come on. I mean, I like this team, by the way. I'm just looking at it now. Maybe I just to make sure that the chat can see it as well a little bit clearly. Let's just respond here. I like this team, to be honest, but as I said, we have to kind of wait for the lineups. Mount could be someone who starts. So I'm not sure whether you want to prioritize playing him. I'm just wondering who you would drop. You know what I mean? So I can see you're probably likely going to drop Immobile. I'd probably put Mount ahead of Rashford in terms of the pecking order. I kind of like how secure you have in terms of both having Italian and English backlines. England seem very strong with five at the back. No, Saka's being dropped. Yeah, I mean, I think so. With Saka being dropped, I imagine that maybe we could have Mount maybe left wing. Maybe we could see Sterling on the right again because Sterling has done extremely well on the right. Yeah, I can show you my team. I mean, I haven't made the changes yet because I'm waiting for the lineups, guys. So, what would probably happen is I would drop these two players. I wouldn't touch Morata. I'd drop Alba and Laporte just for money reasons. I'd bring in two more Italian defenders, probably Bonucci, or Emerson. That's something I still have to kind of think about a little bit, but I would have to go with Di Lorenzo likely if he plays, and then I would probably fill out my team with I think Insigne and Barella, in my opinion. That's what I would probably go for. Obviously, I have one more transfer there, and that could likely be maybe an English midfielder as well. Um, but I haven't fully decided on that yet. So we'll see what exactly happens. I think with the lineups, I'm kind of expecting potentially to have Mount in my team, and if not, then I might actually go for potentially a little bit of a wild card pick from the England national team, regardless. Kane, Sterling, Berardi, Insigne, Donnarumma. Yeah, I mean, I think so. What I would say is you need to prioritize getting Chiesa into that team. And then you can think about in terms of priority. I would probably say getting Shaw and Maguire in there, to be honest. So that's going to be three transfers. And then you have two more transfers. So I would think about maybe either one more kind of English midfielder or Trippier starts. It's official. Is the lineup out, guys? So this was the kind of spreadsheet that we are working off of. But that also really depends on, as I say, the lineup. So let's have a look at this team just very briefly. Okay, interesting they could bring Trippier in. I kind of like that. I kind of like that over Stones as well because it gives you a bit of budget flexibility. Pessina's an interesting one. I don't think Pessina's played too much lately. So, for example, let's look at the Italy-Spain game. They kind of brought Pessina on, but I mean, I didn't think he really had many attacking returns. Obviously, Italy were trying to really, I think, defend quite deep with their low block, given the fact that they were in the lead for most of the match. So you could argue that that's a different little story. But I mean, there's still potential for you to perhaps go for someone who plays a bit more for Italy. No. All right, let's just quickly have a look at the lineups, though, if I can find them. If someone could also send me the link to the lineup, that'd be really appreciated as well. Captain Maguire, very ambitious, but I kind of like it. I will say though, I do think this Italian team is quite strong versus set pieces. So I'm not exactly sure if Maguire would be the perfect pick. Um, so that's the only hesitancy I'd have. Like if you want to prioritize English defender, I still kind of like Shaw, in my honest opinion. Let's quickly have a look at this team. Barella, Trippier, interesting. So a lot of people bring Trippier on over Stones. Makes sense to me. Given the fact that he'll be taking some set pieces from the right, it's not crazy at all. Barella, yeah, I kind of like that. I mean, I think these are good transfers. I mean, you obviously have two more transfers. Question is perhaps maybe if you want to change someone for Emerson, and maybe if you want to even drop a Mobile, would you want to bring in another player if you're extremely into the fact that England win? Um, yeah. So let's see if we can find the England lineup, guys. Have you guys find the England lineup yet? Because I can't seem to find it yet. Just now. So I was kind of planning to talk a little bit more tactically about the game. Before things start. So let's just have a look at some of the updated comments in chat. Who do you think has a better chance of scoring for Italy today out of Insigne, Chiesa, Barella? I like Chiesa's chances. I like Insigne's chances of creating, if that makes sense. And if Berardi and Pessina come in, I mean, I prefer Berardi over Pessina, if I'm being honest. Formation that I'm rocking, I'm going to go for either a 4-5-1 or a 5-4-1. I just really haven't been a fan of Immobile at all. Um, yeah, exactly, Aaron. I mean, I completely that's what we were saying with our tactical video, that I think the only reason why Mount didn't play versus Germany is because he spent a week in isolation, and wasn't able to train, so it didn't make sense to start him because he would have missed out the whole of training. Emerson will score. Look, I think Emerson's a bit limited as a player, and what we've seen is that Insigne has been very good at kind of cutting inside the box, right? And then Emerson kind of runs behind. But then I think that Walker has the pace to match him. That was something that the Spanish defense struggled with a little bit on some occasions, but Walker has that little bit of an X factor in terms of defending versus that type of player like Emerson. I think Walker struggles a little bit more with technical players. Stones out, Maguire is in. Is this a good choice? Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you can afford to, if you just want to swap one like for one like, then that's good. Because I imagine you're in a very healthy position where you don't have to replace too many eliminated players, and that's why you're asking that question. I think Emerson, and remember the interesting thing about Emerson as well is he was substituted off very early versus Spain. So that tells you that I think the Italian manager, but that also depends on whether they have a lead or not, right? So I think if you're gambling on the fact that Italy will have an early lead, then Emerson could be very interesting in terms of securing that clean sheet, because that's literally what happened versus Spain. Um, Barella will score. Stars are shining for him. You think so? I mean, I think Barella has had a great tournament regardless, so far, and honestly, also a great season. I've been a big fan of him for several years now, just watching Inter Milan. I remember him playing versus Real Madrid last year, actually, or maybe actually in the group stages this year for the Champions League, and he was stunning. Who do you think will get the most points in the game? Uh, Hard to call. I really want to see the lineups before I actually make a decision, because I think it does matter whether England play a back five or whether Italy play a back five, because with England moving to a back five, then suddenly Italy probably will have a little bit less of the ball, and I think England will try to keep their possession amongst their defenders a bit more often than usual. And yeah, Walker struggles with movement off the ball. Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Um, he locked off Neymar and Mbappe in the UCL. Yeah, I thought that was one of Walker's best games. But the thing about Walker is sometimes he just has these moments of like indecision, and also just a little bit of I think just inaccurate kind of thinking. So like if you look at the game where he was playing versus Ukraine, like in the first half, there were two mistakes that were quite glaring for me from Walker. But the thing is, like when I think the occasion is big, Walker does tend to be very solid. I'm also kind of reminded of last year, if you guys remember the FA Cup run when Arsenal were winning the FA Cup, right? Last year actually at this point, and then Aubameyang found it quite easily to kind of run in behind Walker a few times. So that's sometimes what I feel Walker's incapable of doing. Sometimes it's just he doesn't really track his runners that well, and then he sometimes is also capable of a lazy pass. I'm ahead of my mini league by 6 points. I think the safe picks are actually just kind of stocking up on defenders because we kind of argued this kind of the logic, right? So we're gonna have one game. I'm tempted to say that I think if you look at, for example, like the history of European Cup finals, and we can look at it together as well. Um, so this is not really see like look. So I don't know if you guys can actually see what I'm showing here, but these are the finals that have occurred, within kind of recent memory, and honestly, I think the history of most European Cup finals is that a lot of them ends with the winning team having a clean sheet. And you could argue, of course, like there's no real good. This is not a good historical metric because perhaps obviously this isn't really England versus Italy, but I do think that finals tend to be more cagey affairs, and that seems to be generally the case, in my opinion. So especially since you're only going to be picking between two teams, I think hedging actually on defenders is a bit more beneficial because that +4 from the clean sheet is almost better than any kind of returns that, for example, like if a striker scores, that's +4 points. If a midfielder scores, of course, we're talking differently. If a defender scores, I mean, you already have the defenders under the kind of argument that we're going for. So we'll think about that in a second. Let's just kind of wait for the English lineup to come up, and then I think for now we'll probably just we can talk about priorities. Don't know what to do with Mount plays. I'm pretty happy with my midfield right now. Let's have a look at this. I mean, I think your midfield makes sense. So, like, one thing that we were showing as well with Mount in terms of his statistics is that Mount does create a few chances for England, but that's also mostly off of set pieces in my opinion. And then suddenly, I think if Trippier actually plays, then perhaps the reason to have Mount in your team is becomes somewhat diminished. Obviously, Mount is still that type of player who I think is capable of like a moment of quality. So I'm kind of reminded of the Champions League final assist, and also some of his assists versus Real Madrid as well in the semifinals. So that's what Mount brings to the table. But I do think it'll be a bit more of a cagey affair, and then you want those kind of chances from the set pieces, which would likely come from Trippier on the right. In this situation, right? So I think it's okay to drop Mount for now. I'm actually pretty happy with your team. I think it looks great. Let's just quickly go back to the chat for a little bit. A differential player from both teams. I think Verratti could be a differential player because I think everyone's going to have Insigne, Chiesa, Barella. So Verratti becomes that kind of next priority. A lot of people were talking about Jorginho, and yes, he is likely going to be the penalty taker in my opinion. But are we so sure that Jorginho is going to be the one to get a penalty? Because I don't think Italy have drawn many penalties, and for example, Italy in the 2021 season hasn't drawn a single penalty yet. Why would you expect them suddenly to be able to draw one in the finals? Do you know what I mean? Um, I'm 50 points clear in my league. I actually think you should go maybe stock up on defenders and just make sure you have Kane in your team as well, and the standard kind of players in terms of like Sterling, Case, etc. Because like it's gonna take so much in terms of a differential pick to have like a momentous game to kind of overcome what you have. Like as long as you have Kane, Sterling, Chiesa, Insigne, and Barella, probably. I think the rest of your team can just be like defenders from both teams, and you'll probably have astrology predicts. Um, Very interesting. I don't know what zodiac sign does Kane have. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, I'm not into that at all. But which keeper to start? Donna, yeah, I think yeah, that logic holds, Gary. So I think Donna will save a bit more shots because especially if England play a back five, I don't imagine Pickford will have to deal with many shots. Who would you captain in my situation then? I think who is second. Like I would also think quickly about who is second place in your league and what players does he have. I kind of like captaining Kane on this day, especially since I do think England are slight favorites in my opinion. And as I mentioned multiple times, the statistics show that Kane, like this English team, is entirely built in terms of scoring goals in open play for Kane and Sterling to score. If Kane and Sterling aren't on the end of the balls, um, then the goal is going to come from a set piece, and you can't really hedge on anyone, right? Because, like, for example, you could captain Maguire, but Stones could be the one scoring a set piece today. What's my team? I can show it now, but it's going to be what's in front of you now, barring the fact that we have some lineup changes, and perhaps I bring in either an additional English midfielder, um, or I let's say um, bring in potentially. Yeah, I think I'll probably stick with this team, to be honest. It's probably going to be Immobile benched, Kane back on, Maguire and Shaw in. So it really depends. I mean, obviously I could drop Di Lorenzo as well for Emerson too. So that's another possibility. Um, but also, I'd encourage you guys to just don't lock in anything just yet. I like Trippier in as well, which you have already. Chiesa, of course, big pick that you have. I noticed that you've dropped Pessina, and then you've brought Di Lorenzo on. Um, are you not going to play Bonucci though? Because for me, I think the only question I had earlier was just on Pessina, really. So, because you didn't have Insigne in your first team. So, that's the only thing I would have really touched on, to be honest. But by the way, guys, I do think I think you should play Bonucci. I think he'll have more offensive returns than Di Lorenzo. So I think I kind of like Emerson and Bonucci as a pair. Emerson, Pickford subbed in. I had the mindset pick Italy or England, so I put more English. Yeah, I think. I mean, also one thing you guys have to think about, it's try to incorporate your own understanding of the game in terms of, like, if you think England's going to win, like, let's think about what kind of avenues they have to victory, right? It's going to be through Kane or Sterling, in my opinion, or a set piece. And so, sometimes it would make less sense to have, like, I don't know, like Rashford as an example. I mean, like, or and then also, like, in terms of Italian players, you'd probably stack less of their defenders, right? If you actually believe England will win. Um, What's your team? Donnarumma, Pickford. I like Donnarumma because I think Donnarumma will be susceptible to having more shots. And I do think Italy are capable of keeping a clean sheet. Like, I really envision two scenarios happening today. I think one of them being, a 1-0 win for Italy where they actually kind of successfully park the bus with their team. And I think also, let's discuss very briefly, I think, Italy versus Spain, because I'd like to talk tactically about how that game is going. Let's just quickly just respond to this comment. Emerson and Pickford subbed in. Yeah, I think this makes sense. I had the mindset pick Italy or England, so I put more English players in. No, that's completely fair enough, and I think the only kind of pick you might have to watch out for is Saka if he doesn't start, especially if England move to a back five. So we'll talk about that in a bit when the lineups are actually out. Um, let's just see if there's kind of any updated lineup news. Still not any kind of official lineup news. We'll have to kind of wait for. It's just better to wait for the kind of official news to start. But let's actually quickly talk about Italy versus Spain as well, and why I think Spain did so well in that game. I think part of the reason why Spain did so well is they had a player like Busquets, and frankly, a lot of people would look at the Spanish team and say, Rodri is comparable to Busquets, but I have to tell you that's completely, I think, incorrect in my opinion. I think Busquets and his agility, even at his age, was tremendous. So the way that the Spanish team kind of evaded the press was simply through mostly very fast touches between this kind of triangle here between, let's say, like Pedri, Alba, and Pau Torres at times, and then also Busquets more so on the right hand side with Koke being someone who would pass a little bit further back to the defenders. At this time, it was obviously Apilicueta playing at right back, but Laporte was also another option where he's very composed. I think a lot of teams try to attack Pau Torres in terms of pressing him. And then a lot of the onus becomes on Alba and Busquets to kind of play out of the press. And I think what I will say is that even though I do like Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips, I think they're not as composed in terms of being able to evade the press, but still look for a forward progressing pass. What we've seen so far in this tournament is that I think Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice have been extremely solid at retaining the ball. But not so much in terms of progressing the play. We did show that, of course, sometimes when England play very much to the left, the opposing team will also defend very deep towards that side. And sometimes Calvin Phillips will look for this kind of over-the-top ball towards the right-hand side of England, which was usually Saka in some games, right? But that doesn't change all the time. That isn't always the case. So I would be a bit hesitant there with that, guys. I just think that this Italian midfield will probably have a little bit more of the ball than we expected versus Spain. Good chance Insigne scores or assists. Astrology predicts. Where are you getting this astrology news from? Honestly, I'd like to know, because I don't think astrology's ever worked out for me in my life, unfortunately. If you're leading your league, then safer options would, yeah. I mean, I think if you're leading your league, like don't go for any differentials. Just play for a stock standard kind of like best team that you have. Who to be captain? I mean, as I said, I think it really depends on what you think will happen. As I said, I envision two scenarios. Like I think probably Italy winning maybe something like 1-0, 2-0 tops, and then or England winning 2-1. Octopus Joel speaks. I look at charts and make my predictions. Been studying it for 15 years. That's very interesting. So I would actually like to captain probably an attacker or a midfielder. An attacker being Kane from England, if you fancy England, and then one of the wingers from Italy if you fancy Italy to win. Because I just think, like for example, Immobile has been very poor this tournament so far. He has had good touches sometimes in the box, but his first touch really does, excuse me, sort of let him down at times. And it usually means that at best he's maybe contributed in terms of passing the ball along. So tips for a limitless team. I think honestly, if you're going for a limitless team, it's not going to be any different to most of the teams that people are going to face, right? Because I'm honestly not a big fan of Immobile. I would not go for Immobile regardless. And then most of your team is going to be budgeted correctly. So I would prioritize Barella, Chiesa, Insigne, Sterling. Probably Bonucci, but I'd probably change Di Lorenzo to Emerson, which I can do as well myself. And I'd probably play like a 5-4-1 where I keep Maguire, Shaw, and Kane. You could also, if you're maybe more of a fan of England and what they bring to the table, then you could also bring in someone like for example, like I could maybe bring in Trippier, right? And then actually drop Stone. So that's maybe another decision you have to make, guys. I think in terms of priority, I think set pieces usually do fall, hopefully, to Maguire. Stones is that kind of third priority, but the person actually delivering that ball is probably going to be Trippier. So you probably guarantee yourself a little bit more by having both the set piece takers for England in terms of Trippier and Shaw. So I kind of like having those two. Trippier at least in priority to Stone. So I kind of like maybe playing a 5-4-1. You could also opt for a 4-5-1 where if you're not so much of a fan of having too many defenders, you could probably drop an Italian defender, and maybe if you're a fan of England, you could go for an English midfielder. The only reason why I'd say 5-4-1 favors more of an Italian favored game is because I don't really see many options where Italy will outscore England too much. But I do see England as capable of scoring as well. So let's just quickly have a look at chat. I'm captaining Insigne because Joel said so. I mean, honestly, astrology could prove to be correct. So why not? Insigne or Sterling for captain. Once again, as I say, it really depends on I prefer Insigne. Just because I feel like so I think the Italian team is going to be extremely wary of the threat that Sterling presents, and perhaps I could see a similar kind of Ukraine performance where he's pivotal to the game, but maybe he gets an assist as opposed to being on the end of balls, if you know what I mean. Is 4-5-1 good? Yes, I do like it. 4-5-1, I think 4-5-1 is actually I think more beneficial towards, as I say, an English team because therefore you can fit like another English midfielder if you get what I'm saying. Nobody has to follow my predictions. No, of course, I'm just having a laugh as well. Like, I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm not a fan of your astrology. I'm just saying astrology in general. Look at Twitter. Yeah, we can have a look at Twitter right now if you guys want. And also, guys, remind me as well if you guys ever see any news in terms of lineups for England or Italy, just do let us know in the chat so I can react to that quickly, and then we can discuss any kind of impactful changes. Hey Jamie, so please help me with what should I do with my bench players and what I should go with. What you think? Yeah, I think the way you've outlined your bench, I mean that's the way to go. To be honest, I think maybe the only thing I would say is hmm, maybe like you could think about Trippier if he starts. That's the only thing I would mention in terms of the team, because I would prefer Trippier in priority to Walker in my opinion. So because Walker becomes that third center back and he's clearly not a set piece threat, so you've kind of isolated him in my opinion, for someone who's slightly better in terms of attacking returns. So that's what I would say. I would only look at that. I kind of like the five back you have as well. Very ambitious, of course, to have four English defenders. So England having a clean sheet. I mean, I don't think that's out of the question. So it could happen, but you kind of have it hedged both ways, if that makes sense. So you have like these three Italian midfielders that if they score, of course, that would really hurt your four defenders. So I guess you kind of have that security, right? So maybe you've protected yourself from both scenarios happening. And then of course Kane scoring as well, which I think is a very safe and standard and good pick, to be honest. So not bad. I would just think about Trippier. Maguire's going to have a great game or terrible game. It's either or for him, astrology predicts. All right, 3 Lions. So you guys are, I mean, just to get a flavor as well in chat, like who, what do you guys think is, which team do you guys think is going to win? Like, just write Italy or England in the chat just so I can get it. And also write your score prediction as well alongside that. Who to drop? Maguire, Stones, and Shaw. I would drop Stones if you're thinking about taking Emerson. Which formation should I go? Honestly, you can't go 3-5-2. I think you can't go 3-5-2. I think I would prefer having more defenders. I would go 4-4-2. England 1-0. Nice. Both goalkeepers are pretty good. I think I would prefer Donnarumma if you had both keepers, which I do as well. Just because I think if both teams score, then I think Donnarumma is going to be the keeper who's subjected to more shots. So we saw, for example, like in the Spain game, Donnarumma got an additional bonus point for saves. Pickford, on the other hand, didn't. Of course, now I do think the Italian midfield will have a little bit more of the ball than Denmark. But still, I don't think Pickford was really subjected to any shots, if at all. 1-1, then Italy penalties. Italy 1-2 to England. 2-0 to England, 0-0. I mean, 0-0 would be a crazy outcome, but it would be highly beneficial to... I mean, ultimately, I still think like a lot of people are predicting for one side to have a clean sheet. So if you kind of use that basis in terms of predicting how the game will go, I do think it makes sense to have a little bit more defenders than usual, guys, in this specific game week. We can talk about, let's just recap England versus Denmark and then Italy versus Spain. So, and I might outline like what I thought were like some of the key weaknesses. I think, so for me, I think England had a fantastic game versus Denmark, in my opinion. I'm not going to talk about the penalty. It was obviously controversial. We all know that. I think one of the things that England struggle with at times is when a lot of the onus is to progress the ball through their kind of defensive mid, sometimes there is a little bit of a poor ability to actually kind of progress the pass when Rice and Phillips are tasked with this kind of job. And what I would say is usually what happens is there is a little bit of lazy passing, I'd say, to Sterling and Kane, who are expected to retain the ball well. And then Mount does a lot of the defensive work for the team. But I think if you look at dispossessions, like this English team got dispossessed a lot of times. And frankly, I think Højbjerg was like essential to that. I thought he had an amazing game. He was dispossessing Kane plenty of times, and we talked about that in the tactical analysis video. Whereas I think like if you use that basis in terms of thinking about who's going to collect more of the ball, I think Italy can do that with the players that they have. Barella is someone who presses very hard, Verratti as well, and we know Jorginho is very solid as that kind of stable DM. And I do fear that sometimes that the ways to kind of provide the ball to Sterling and Kane are a little bit simplified, I think, in the English system. But obviously their kind of class as players themselves allow for England to create these fantastic chances, which they do. And we saw, of course, Kane pull out plenty of chances in the game regardless. So, for example, that kind of own goal chance was set up by him. He could have also scored perhaps or assisted a Sterling perhaps a second prior as well to that chance. And fundamentally, the English system is very dependent on Kane and Sterling. So if I show you some of the statistics of the Euro so far for England, you'll see that the expected goals falls entirely on a few key players. So look at the drop-off, guys, after Kane and Sterling. So when you guys are asking about who do you think is going to score, etc., like there's such a significant drop-off after Kane and Sterling that I am actually going to say, I mean, I think, of course, expected goals is also lesser as well for set pieces. So if you think England will have a good chance for set pieces, then perhaps the expected goals metric isn't very good at detailing that. But ultimately, I think like in open play, which is likely probably how England will score, if at all, is probably going to be through Kane and Sterling, which is why I think it's a little bit troublesome, right? Because you can see that the expected goals actually then falls on players like Stones and Maguire. I think Stones has a slightly higher metric because he played the 2 extra games over Maguire. Remember, Stones hit the post in one of the kind of group stage games. I think it was versus Scotland, and Maguire, of course, played slightly fewer games. So you can kind of tell, for example, based on chance creation, that really it comes down to those players, and then expected assists is somewhat similar as well. Um, Kane and Sterling once again being those kind of key chance creators for the team. But shot creating actions is also another kind of nice metric to look at as well, guys. In terms of chance creators, and I think Grealish does extremely well with that. So, for example, if we look at goal creating actions, or if we look at shot creating actions, Grealish and Mount favor very well there. So, of course, it makes sense still, in my opinion, to go for someone like Mount. I do think I have a little bit less of favoritism towards Saka on this specific match day, just because I do think the Italian defense is quite solid. And also, just let me know when you guys have seen the kind of lineups, because it'll be interesting to see what goes on. Barella is going to have a really good game. No guarantees he will score or assist. That's what he predicts. Yeah, I mean, I think Barella has been a fantastic player for Italy all this tournament, right? He is given more of a free roaming role for the team. So if you look at his heat map, it's going to be very disorganized compared to some of the other players in the team. He didn't have as effective a game against Spain, but look at his heat map. He really is all over the place for this Italian team. I'm not sure if you guys can see it very clearly. I'll try to make it a little bit larger for you guys, but you can see, like, with his heat map, he's really all over the pitch, and he's given a little bit more of a license to go wherever he wants, and he does create these chances for himself, and I think he has also very good vision too. So sometimes you could see him unlocking someone like Chiesa as well with the ball in behind, which could happen, of course, because what happens is this Italian team will kind of attack almost as a five, with Emerson being the left winger, and as I say, Insigne dropping a little bit deeper in between the space that Immobile and Emerson kind of occupy high up in the field. But of course, remember that England will play a back five, so England could be well suited to that. So we have to think about that as well. I would prefer Barella over Verratti. If I go the clean sheet route, five at the back, who should I captain? I'm thinking Insigne. Yeah, I mean, I like Insigne if you're kind of backing Italy. Dropped from second to fourth in my mini league. I'm going Italy. I do like Chiesa captain just a little bit more. I think he's shown that he's very, very direct. Guys, I think there's still a chance of one own goal. I mean, it's very possible. Own goal has become the top scorer of this tournament so far. Yeah, I mean, you can see my lineup. It's actually what's on the table right now. I'm just kind of deciding between waiting for the lineup to come out, and then I'll probably go for 5-4-1. I'll probably, drop Immobile, so he'll fall to my bench, and then I'll actually play a 4-5-1 or a 5-4-1. I'm not a big fan of having both these strikers. I could prove to be wrong, of course, and I'll have to eat my own words, but I do think Immobile has been shut out by a lot of teams so far, and I expect that to be the case because, honestly, I think the English defense has been very good. I'm just going to quickly check Twitter to see if we have any Spinazzola player of the tournament. Absolutely. But I do think, of course, you have to say, Spinazzola did stop playing, versus Spain, for example, unfortunately due to his ACL injury. And then, of course, I would say Sterling had a fantastic game once again versus Denmark. So he's been undeniably great so far. By the way, I'm only 3 ahead in my mini league. I like this team. Of course, it is a bit Italy. I don't know. So what I would say is, so it seems like you have a lot of faith in terms of Italy keeping a clean sheet, but then you also have Maguire as a captain. So I might just query why that's the case. Do you think that's just like the best way for you to protect yourself, or are you kind of expecting like even something like a 0-0 game? Is there any reason why you're captaining perhaps the defenders from England, or maybe you think Maguire will get onto a set piece chance? Mount or Barella Mount or Barella. I think given the fact that you have Chiesa and Insigne, and you've gone for a more, I think, Italy-focused backline, I would say, then I think maybe hedging it with Mount is nice. But remember that maybe with Trippier coming in, Mount actually has less set-piece deliveries, so I feel like Mount's role could be a bit diminished. So in that instance, if we see Trippier actually starting, then I would actually go back and revise this and probably say go for Barella if Trippier comes in. Your friend will captain Kane. Yeah. No, that's a fair point. I think if you think England will likely win, then I suppose Maguire will be interesting. Did you guys watch a lot of the Wimbledon finals today as well with Djokovic? Lineups are out. Lineups are out. Awesome, awesome, guys. Saka out. Saka out. How do you think Mount would fare on the wings? I think Mount does well on the wings because he plays a little bit of a deeper role on the left side. We'd probably see Shaw, sorry, push for. I'm also a Nadal fan as well, so that's pretty sad. But as I said, I do think Mount plays okay in the wings. He's more of like how would I say, like a gap kind of filler in terms of sometimes when you see Bruno play on the wings, he really moves there to support plays, but he then drifts a little bit more centrally. Exactly. Yeah, Mount kind of plays that sort of left center. Like he plays like a hybrid position for Chelsea, but he's allowed to kind of cut inside and also demand a bit more of the ball. You guys are Nadal fans as well, yeah. A bit unfortunate, of course. Djokovic has been too dominant as of late. Very sad year for us. But I mean, he Djokovic has been an incredible player, so fair play to him. Let's look at the England lineups, guys. Let me just get onto that very quickly, and we can react to that. Oof. Okay. Wow. So there's no Trippier, guys. So let's. Oh, sorry. There is Trippier. Oh my God. I don't know why. I don't know why these guys line up their team by shirt number. It just makes no sense. But my bad. Trippier is in. It's the same team that we've seen versus Germany, with the exception of Mount coming in for Saka. So I actually think that if you guys have had Mount in your team so far, um, I'm a bit more of a fan of Trippier because so what we've seen is that most of the chances that Mount has created right now in this English team has been through the set pieces, right? His corner taking, some of his free kicks from the right hand side. But with Trippier coming in, don't you guys think Trippier would be a better option? Um, what do you guys feel about that? I kind of like Trippier coming in, guys. That's just my personal opinion, and I would probably put Mount on a lower priority now. I'll show the lineup once again, just so that people can react to that. What do you guys feel about that? Yeah, exactly. Trippier takes good free kicks. Mount on the wing is deadly. I don't disagree with that at all. But I do think I do think that the kind of structure that we've seen, it still is so heavily dependent on Kane and Sterling. Where I would say, yeah, I mean, I'm probably a bigger fan of Mount. Who the captain? No, I mean I know Trippier is a defender, Mount is midfield, but I mean the reason why I mentioned Trippier and Mount is because you could change your formation, right? You could change your formation either from a 4-5-4-1 or to a 4-5-1. I think Mount has shown that in big games he can do it. No, that's what I was saying. So, but you also have to think about what kind of structure Mount plays for the English national team. It's not just the role that Mount has at a club level, right? Because, for example, let's be honest, let's look at Sterling's role at a club level this year. It's been very poor, very diminished. But by contrast, we've seen a very, very solid performance from him, throughout the entire tournament. Yeah, the lineup is out, guys. So we're kind of, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think Trippier becomes a set piece taker. So I understand what you mean, though. You already have four English defenders, so I can understand not having Trippier. So that's fine. Are you guys not able to see the lineup? I'm pretty sure I'm showing the lineup for you guys. I kind of like Trippier coming into my team. I think I might hold on for the Italian players so far, and then I'll probably just I'd probably just confirm. I'll probably confirm Trippier in for now, in my opinion. So I can just and then we can make transfers when the Italian lineup is out. Let's if you guys are happy to move on to the Italian team, let's try move to the Italian lineup if that's all right. 50 seconds ago, perfect. We just got the Italian lineup, guys. Emerson starts, Chiellini starts, Bonucci starts, Di Lorenzo, Barella, Jorginho, Verratti, Chiesa, Mobile, Insigne. Okay, so nothing out of the ordinary there. I think I'm just gonna go ahead with some of my transfers now. So I think I prefer Emerson, kind of like Bonucci as well. Um, and then I'm probably going to drop these two for these two. So I'm probably just gonna lock this in. I'm gonna lock it in because honestly, I'm not too fussed. So we just make transfers. Yeah, so I am gonna be a little bit ambitious, and I'm gonna drop Immobile to be honest, because just not been a huge fan of him so far. I'm not gonna captain Emerson. I'm probably going to captain Kane to be honest. So that's where I kind of lie right now. I don't think I'll touch that, but we can start. We can start. You guys can start coming in with Twitter now, and we can start responding. So crying in the taxi, very interesting Twitter name, decent Twitter handle actually. All right, that's literally the pretty much same team that I have, bar Stones. I mean, I still think once again Stones is very good in terms of being on the end of set pieces, but as I say, if you're not on the stream, I would say maybe consider trips over Stones. Let's also kind of respond to chat. I need to risk most England players or Italy. I think most people actually favor England. So if you actually need to play risky, then you probably want to have a little bit more Italian players. I'm placed in second, I think, in both my mini leagues. Basically, you know, if you guys have been following the channel for the last kind of month or so, I'd say, you'll know that I dropped 8 points when I didn't get the chance to touch my team in the, was it the quarterfinals or maybe the round of 16? And so I left Højbjerg and Spinazzola when Spinazzola got his assist that day. So I left them on the bench. And then after that, I decided to have some fun and I completely sacked my team. So I actually went for full Spain, full Belgium players just to support my Belgian friend Mehdi. And then obviously because I'm Spanish, I just went for a full Spanish team. But then on our YouTube video, we were recommending to actually go for a full English team on that day. So I like Barella over Jorginho. I just don't think Italy have drawn many penalties within the last year and a half in the kind of attacking structure that they have. And frankly, I mean, I do think the only person capable really of a mistake in the penalty box is Walker. But I still think he's always seemed to kind of rise to the occasion. So I'm not really a big fan of hedging on Italy getting a penalty, if you guys know what I mean. So we've reacted to the Italian lineup as well, by the way, guys. I don't know if you saw that earlier, but basically they're going with the same team that we expected. Nothing out of the ordinary there. Should I replace Stones to Trippier? I would like to replace Stones to Trippier. I think if you favor Italy, then you should go for Insigne or Chiesa. If you favor England, then you should probably go for Kane. And that's how I would prefer that. I mean, yeah, I mean, Stones is not a bad, as we showed with the kind of statistics, right? Like with Stones actually does get on the end of a lot of set pieces, like no, even though Maguire is in the team. So Stones makes sense. So if you guys have any kind of team questions, you can send that through from Twitter. 541 is the formation that I'm going with. Are you second with the 8 points or without? No, I would be first place right now with the 8 points. I also decided to completely sack my team. So like the advice I gave you guys for the before the game versus Ukraine was to go for 5 or 4 English players, right? And as I said, I went for Spain and Belgium players just for fun because I knew at that point I was no longer going to place like top 1 to 5K in the world. So I just kind of decided to sack my kind of fantasy team just so I could back the teams I like, because for me Euro fantasy is a bit more fun. But then obviously the kind of advice I give you guys on the live stream and on the YouTube videos is much more serious in terms of, I know you guys have your own private leagues and I have nothing to play for in my private league, but I'm sure you guys have money on the line and things like that. So obviously I'm only going to give you the advice that I think would actually allow you to win. So for example, like I could have brought on Maguire, Shaw, those two play. Sorry, not Shaw. I already had Shaw on my team, but I could have brought Maguire and Kane on in the week where Belgium was playing Italy. But I just decided to have a bit of fun there. Immobile having a bad game. Interesting. Do you think Verratti over Barella is a good take? I think it's a differential. It's a differential. And it also probably gives you a bit more budgeting. I don't know if to have maybe a better premium Italian defender. 5-4-1 versus 5-3-2 is pretty much just Immobile versus Barella. I think 5-3-2 is just as viable. That's a fair point. That's actually that's very reasonable. I agree with that actually. That's a good take to have. Um, but I have preferred Barella in the recent games than compared to Immobile. Do you think I should replace Immobile by Mount since I already completed 5 transfers? Would that mean that you go -4? If you're going -4, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. Who should I captain? And as we mentioned, I think we go for Kane. And if you're a big fan of, I mean, if you're a fan of Italy winning, then I would actually probably go for Insigne or Chiesa. So of course the lineup news is out as well. Who do you think is the highest chance of being subbed out from this squad? For example, in a situation where it's 0-0 at the 60th or 70th minute. I think we've actually seen that Chiesa is a very good gas tank. So I initially would have thought that he would have been subbed off earlier for someone like Berardi. But I actually think that Immobile is actually the one who probably gets subbed off quite early. If you look at the recent games where Immobile hasn't had a very kind of talismanic effect on the game or hasn't had much of an impact in the game at all, we've seen that Immobile is the one who gets substituted off first. If you're talking about substitutes for the English national team, I think it's possible that he might switch into a back four if, let's say, for example, like with England, if they suddenly fall behind, it doesn't make sense to stay within the back five structure potentially, and then he therefore perhaps drops one of the defenders, maybe Trippier as an example, so that he can put in someone like Grealish. Um, does Sterling as captain make sense because he's pretty pacey and can win penalties and he's looked dangerous the whole tournament? I mean, I think Sterling definitely makes sense still. I prefer Kane, but I mean, I'm not going to disagree with Sterling. I mean, he's been immense the whole tournament. Um, if you're not going -4, I think that Mount could make sense. Yeah, it could make sense. You have both Immobile and Mount. Okay, right. You're just talking about who you want to put on your bench. I would probably put Immobile on my bench personally. Limitless formation. You like my XI. Thank you very much. I think honestly, if you're going limitless, you could go for the same team that I have here. But if you prefer someone like, if you prefer dropping Emerson for Chiellini, you could probably do that. I think that's the only kind of transfer I can't afford, right? Like I can't afford Chiellini at his current price. Exactly, I can't afford Chiellini, but I still kind of prefer Emerson because what we've seen, for example, there's still a situation where, for example, like if Italy have a 1-0 lead, we've seen that Mancini likes to sub Emerson off quite early. So when we're talking about substitutes, he could be one that gets subbed off early. So that's what I would do, Ahmed. Maybe just think about Chiellini, but otherwise I would actually stick relatively to my team. Of course, Sterling makes sense, man. Of course he does. Yeah, I mean, he's had a fantastic tournament. Maguire is captain worth it. I mean, you're basically asking me if you think he'll score off of a set piece, right? Otherwise, I think Shaw makes more sense. If you're going for an England clean sheet, just in terms of chance creation and whatnot. Does bench matter? Honestly, probably not. No, because you're likely going to put a team that all starts, right? So as long as every single, for example, like all the players I have in my team right now are going to start the game, so the bench doesn't matter. Unless there's a freak accident, literally between the next one. For example, okay, the only time bench will matter is going to be if there's a freak accident to any of these players during their warm up, right? If during their warm up one of these players gets injured and they don't play a single minute for this tournament, then your bench matters. But honestly, your bench is likely not going to matter. Indonesia, please stop spamming if that's all right. Sorry, just gonna have to put you in a timeout if that's all right. Guys, please don't try to spam. A lot of people are asking questions, and it's just fair to everyone. Jens, I'm gonna have to time you out. I'm really sorry about that, but I think you should captain Kane or Sterling or Insigne Case. I think Case is a bit direct. Yeah, guys, I've put both of them in a timeout. I mean, just try to be respectful to everyone in the chat. Everyone's just trying to ask their questions, so if everyone can have their fair chance of talking in chat, that'd be good. Thinking about bringing in Trippier, I think it makes sense. I think some people might have gone a little bit crazy. They've gone for 4 English defenders, and that's fair enough. I think if you're expecting an English clean sheet, I'm a little bit more towards England actually winning today. But I think the problem about England is that Hulk Hogan, that's all right. We got your question. Can you check my team out? Yeah, we can look at Twitter in a second. Thank you so much, Ahmed. Yeah, so we'll look forward to seeing you as well in EPL Fantasy. Should I take Bonucci/Chiellini instead of Stones? I think it depends on how many English defenders you have, and also if you have pure Italy. I mean, honestly, as I said to the chat, I do think It'll be England maybe 2-1 or Italy 1-0 or 2-0. I'm not 100% certain on any of those kind of options. I think it actually will be quite a closely contested affair. Yeah, I like Donnarumma more because I expect him to take more shots. But so just going back to the Bonucci slash Chiellini question, I would say just look at how many English slash Italian defenders you have, and if you kind of think you might be a little bit too favored in terms of England, then maybe you could think about Bonucci. Best captain options, I think it's just going to be the attackers for today because I'm not 100%. The thing is, I do expect a clean sheet, but I couldn't tell you what team is actually that clean sheet will belong to. Trippier as captain, risky but could pay off. I think, but think about this, right? So, for example, Trippier as captain, why would it work out? First of all, it would work out because he has a clean sheet, which all the other English defenders would have as well. And then it would probably work off because he gets an assist, right? Because we're not expecting Trippier necessarily to score a goal. Trippier is someone who crosses the ball in, even when he takes set pieces. He's not really someone who takes too many direct free kicks, in my opinion. Um, so I think in that instance, it might make sense to go for the person who you think will probably score the set piece. Maybe someone like Maguire, like based on that logic. I think Shaw as well could be interesting because I'm just theorizing based on how much of the ball that I think that the fullbacks will have. I think Trippier still plays a little bit deeper than Shaw, if given the opportunity, and therefore I think like Shaw has even more potential to kind of get assists in open play, and he still takes set pieces likely from the left. Kind of pure blood both conceding. I mean, yeah, I mean, if both teams concede, that's going to be a terrible day for fantasy. But that's also why I recommend making sure you get like one of the attacking players as a captain, right? Just in case. I have back three. Should I take -4 Doc Bonucci? I mean, don't take -4 because if you're 20 points above someone, like you're in a perfect position. Because think about it. What can someone have as a differential over you? Probably a back five, right? A back five, what is that? Maximally, we're talking probably like 12 points differential. Don't go -4 because you're going to reduce it from 16, 16 versus 12 as opposed to 20 versus 12. So I think just stay with what you have, Yo-Yo. Should I get Immobile out and Trippier in? I think if it doesn't cost you money, I think it's actually quite reasonable. What are your thoughts on starting Saka and having Grealish on bench? No, I don't think that makes any sense. I prefer Grealish off the bench than Saka off the bench. And remember, the bench doesn't really matter unless I don't know. There's a weird situation where because Saka's not starting the game, if you know what I mean. So I would probably have Grealish in priority to Saka, because if Grealish doesn't play, then the bench will default go to Saka. But I prefer Grealish's chances of getting assists than Saka, so that's why I say that. What about Jorginho? I mean, Italy haven't drawn a penalty in a long time, guys. Italy haven't drawn a penalty for the whole of the 2020/21 season. But I mean, if you do think they will get a penalty on this kind of fateful day, then yeah, Jorginho makes sense. But I still think the chances are low. What happens if both teams concede? Isn't it safe to have only three defenders? I would probably still say no, actually, because if you think about the English defenders, a lot of the times when England scores, it's actually contributed by their defenders, right? If it isn't Kane and Sterling. So I think everyone already has Kane and Sterling, whether or not you have 3 or 5 defenders. So if you think England's going to score, then maybe the other assists come from an English defender, which you probably would have, which that kind of gives you a little bit of that security, if you know what I mean. And then what's another situation? So we'd also probably have, like, let's say Italy. I still think we saw Emerson actually have good attacking returns versus Spain. He hit the post one time. He could have potentially assisted Barella if he just got onto the ball a little bit faster. So these are all kind of situations where the defenders could be quite useful. Why Bonucci over Di Lorenzo? Di Lorenzo doesn't push up high in attack, and then I think Bonucci has good potential to get a set piece return. I've gone with the 8 Italians as way off in the mini league. That's fair enough. As my third English player, I need to choose between Mount and Trippier. I prefer Trippier then in that situation. I think Trippier is going to be a bit of a differential because I think not many people have Trippier in their squads right now. I think Verratti is another differential. I kind of prefer him a little bit more. I am leaving Kane as the captain, I think, likely, yes. Ing is playing 5 defense, so it would be a physical game, therefore a lot of injuries and yellow cards. It's an interesting one, but the problem is we can't do anything about it, right? Because you don't get to put any players on your bench on, do you know what I mean? So I am leaving Kane on as captain. I do think it's a cagey affair, though. It's a 5-back, guys. I mean, it's pretty hard to penetrate a 5-back, and then I'd also say conversely, it's pretty hard to penetrate Italy's defense. I like Emerson a little bit over Immobile, yes. I'm just not a big fan of Immobile for this match day. honestly, Harkey, I think all those three options are good. It really just depends on what scenario you expect. So, because think about it, Kane, like for example, if you see both Kane and Sterling scoring, then obviously Sterling becomes a better captain. If you think England keep a clean sheet, then Shaw is a better captain than both, right? Because um, probably there's an eventual, like I think there's a potential, especially if England get a clean sheet, that Shaw would also be one of those like lead chance creators as well. So, but it is a bit risky, I think, with the Shaw one. I kind of like Kane a bit. Barella or Chiellini? Interesting. I probably would say Barella, to be honest. I would say Barella. I'm just going to quickly hop onto Twitter a little bit, guys, so we can actually respond to some of the individual teams. How's this team with Berardi subbed out for Case and Bonucci for Immobile? I like this team. Yep, I like it. Mount makes sense as well. Bonucci, Emerson, yep, makes sense. Donnarumma. Insigne captain, I like that as well. And obviously, yeah, you're going to put Berardi on, which is fine. Only question I'd say is, what are you going to do for your bench? So I guess Immobile on the bench, and then you play the 5-4-1, right? Yeah, okay, so there's no Barella there. That's fine. That's fine. Is there any reason why you're captaining Insigne, especially given that you've also brought Mount in the team? Just kind of curious on that. Let's have a look at this team here. Kane captain makes sense. Ooh, okay. One of the first 3-5-2s that we've seen of the day so far. So that's obviously... Oh, ooh, okay, dropping Maguire as well. Very interesting pick. I think it's a very interesting team, to be honest. I guess you're expecting that both teams would likely score. And then I think in that scenario, it kind of makes sense. It is a bit ambitious. I'd probably just query how you're doing in terms of your league so far. But I think given that you're on 320 points, I'm assuming that you're doing very well. So I would say it is a bit, I think, attacking in the sense that maybe you're not getting too many clean sheet returns. Really depends on how you feel the game is going to go. So I think that's the only situation. Maybe you want to shore it up a little bit with the 4-4-2. Maybe drop Barella into a defender potentially. Especially as it seems like you probably prefer maybe England to win. But let me know about that. Let's have a look at Brainless's team. Or actually, let's look at Ad's team first very quickly. I prefer Maguire over Trippier, in my opinion. Yeah. Because I think so. If I'm expecting Trippier to create an assist, it's probably going to go to Kane or Maguire, I would say, as priorities. So then I kind of like Maguire there just for his chances in that situation. It's a tough question, though. It's a tough question. I'd prefer to have all three of the English kind of like chance creators in terms of the defense, and then having Maguire as well as part of that. Insigne was the last captain. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, no, that's fine. I think if you're favoring England, of course, then probably let's look at a Kane captaincy, I guess, just to play it safe. Because I feel like most people across the world are going to go with the Kane captain, and we have to be honest, like especially if you're holding on to a good league position, like it doesn't make sense to make a differential captain pick. Do you know what I mean? If you're already doing well in your league, you're better off probably going with Kane as a captain if you're in a good position and you need to just retain the lead. Pickford is prone to long shots. Agree with that. Immobile to have a crack outside the box. We'll sit back and give him time the ball. I do think, I mean, England will sit back, but also keep in mind that with a back five, it's like, that's a lot of pressure on a striker. You don't really have the time and space to really go for a long shot. Like, as a striker versus a back five, you're the one usually making runs off the defenders, and you're trying to draw people away from your midfielders, like someone like Barella who's coming on second, or some of your wingers. So for me, like I feel like the role of a striker versus a back five is actually quite diminished sometimes, and you play this kind of off the ball role for the team a little bit more. Should I bring in Maguire? Yeah, I'd bring in Maguire, to be honest. Are you still going with Grealish for sure? By the way, a little bit of a differential. I kind of like it. Ah, right. I see. Yeah. So Grealish is that kind of differential. Yeah, I like it. Are you sticking with the Barella captaincy as well? That's the only question I'd have otherwise. Let's look at Mark's team here. If not Cap Kane, then I like Captain and Kane, so I'd stay with that. So I think the difference here is that you have a situation where you either have Grealish or a situation where you have Stones. It's an interesting one. I think so. I think the Grealish pick makes sense if you're maybe like chasing on, like if you're a little bit behind in your league, and then the Stones one is the safer one. So I don't really know exactly what your position is, so that's what I'm going to say. Yeah, I mean Grealish is going to be a differential no matter what, just given the fact that he's not starting, and I mean I still think he has an off the bench role to play, but if you're a little bit further down in your league, then yeah, it makes sense to go for him. Donna slash I think Donna for saves. Let's just kind of respond to some of the teams, but actually just before we do that, let's have a look at YouTube for a second. Let's have a look at it's coming home, it's coming Rome. Yeah, I mean, I think earlier we predicted it's quite even from both sides. I think a lot of people are expecting clean sheets. It's going to be quite a cagey affair, though, I still think, especially with England playing a back five. I'm really confused between 4-5-1 or 5-4-1. I've got the players for both formations. I think it just depends on how you think the game will go, right? Because especially with someone like Trippier coming into the team, then your reason for picking someone like Mount might diminish, and therefore it probably doesn't make sense to go 4-5-1 again. So I think 5-4-1 is the safest option, in my opinion. That also responds to your question, Daryl, in my opinion. I think Captain Kane makes sense. I'm not so sure about Jorginho for penalties. Like, I wouldn't say that's like a great insurance because Italy don't often get penalties. I'm 10 points ahead in my league. I think you would stack defenders and Captain Kane if you're ahead in your league. It's coming home, very possibly. Honestly, I was outside in London today, and yeah, I mean, like people are so up for the game. Like it would be such a huge kind of win for the English fans. Thoughts on captaining Insigne? Right foot free kicks. I think Trippier is going to be brought in my opinion. I think Mount sometimes under hits a few corner kicks, and I think Trippier is trusted to have better delivery on the right. Thoughts on captaining Insigne? Nothing wrong with that. I do think sometimes when he plays with better defenses, he plays a little bit more of maybe like a deep lying role for the team, where he is probably looking to create space for Emerson and behind. For example, like look at the Spain game as an example. Like he played a little bit deeper than most, but still, like you saw, like even from deep, Insigne has that threat to attack. But I mean, that's a bit ambitious as well, right? So, whereas Chiesa, I think, is a more direct threat, although he doesn't get much of the ball. So I do like Insigne if you think Italy will control the game, in my opinion, and if you think their kind of midfield combination will kind of overwhelm England. I don't really like 3-5-2, but I mean you're completely entitled to pick that formation, Anderson. I wish you the best of luck with that one. So England fans just can't behave themselves in victory or defeat. I live here but still want to nick. I think it tends to be the case that I think if you're probably like an English if you live in England and you're not like an English person, then it is a bit overbearing at times. But we have to understand as well, I think, that we're subject to the English media more often, and inevitably there's going to be a lot of bias towards England within the press that we kind of see because we're probably not reading journalistic outlets from other kind of countries. Why Barella over Mount? I think Trippier coming in probably reduces Mount's set piece chances, and therefore I think Mount makes a little bit less sense. What's your final team selection compared to your initial team? I can't show you now because I've already made the transfers, but I can tell you what my transfers were. So I brought in Insigne for Ferran Torres. I brought in Barella for Pedri. I brought in Bonucci and Emerson and Trippier as well. So I brought those in for Alba, Laporte, and Mela. So those were the subs that I made. But yeah, let's go back to Twitter as well. Captain, I think probably Kane is the safest one. If you fancy Italy, I'd probably go for someone like Chiesa. Is there an English defender who could be subbed off early? Yes, 100%. England are playing a back five, so if let's say England concede early, and maybe around 60 minutes, the state of the game is exactly the same, then I think you would likely see that Trippier is going to be dropped off. I have 3 English defenders, Donna GK to balance defense. Yeah, that makes complete sense, Rohan. I would definitely do that. how does Trippier coming in change your tactic? I think it actually kind of enforces my tactic for two reasons. First of all, I think Mount is one of the priority picks you would have for England outside of Sterling and Kane in terms of attacking chance creation, right? And then Grealish becoming another one of those options, especially since Saka isn't starting. But then Mount actually kind of, I think, will probably take a second priority compared to Trippier in terms of the right side set pieces, right? So I think that's the situation where with Trippier coming in, I have a little bit less priority over Mount. Why Emerson over Di Lorenzo? I think Di Lorenzo is a better defender, but we're talking about fantasy here. And I think even versus Spain, Emerson's pace in behind was actually quintessential, I think, to creating some chances for Italy in open play. And I also think, funnily enough, if Italy have a lead early on in the game, what we saw was that Emerson got substituted off quite early in the game, right? So that's one of those kind of options where I like having Emerson, because if you get subbed off, you have good returns. I'm going to respond to Samarth and his team from email. I'm sorry I missed that. But I like your team. You've gone for a 3-5-2. As I mentioned, that is a bit ambitious in terms of, I think, expecting a very open affair. But I can see as well that you've gone for Verratti, which is a little bit of a differential. I imagine that you're captaining Sterling as well because you're probably chasing your private league. And to be fair, like if that is the strategy you're going for, then it makes sense. Being English doesn't necessitate supporting the national football team. That's a fair point. I'd be surprised, to be honest, if you weren't supporting the English national team, though. If you were English, Emerson is more attacking. Yes, exactly. That's why you're not patriotic. I mean, everyone has their own opinion, right, guys? If you don't want to support your own national team for whatever reason, I mean, that's totally fair. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions. Let's not get too political, though, guys. At the end of the day, we're just kind of here because we love football, right? So, like, I mean, everyone has their own opinions, and let's just kind of stick to that, really. Who is Italy's first penalty taker? It's Jorginho. We saw that with the statistics already. Jorginho is actually someone who takes penalties even when Immobile is on the pitch. Emerson can't even hit the post. I think he did hit the post. Did he not versus Spain? He's obviously not a fantastic player. There's a big drop off, I think, when you compare Emerson to Spinazzola. But that's just how it is, right? Statistically, does Italy played well against ultra defensive team like England? Yeah, I think that's a good question to ask, because in the group stages, I don't think Italy played versus any good defensive teams at all. However, I would probably say that, honestly, ironically, you might laugh, but I do think Spain is a good defensive team. I think Spain were actually very good at evading the Italian press. I think Spain were also one of the teams who, coming out of the group stages, had suffered the least amount of shots on target. I think Spain's worst game versus was Switzerland. And I still think Italy played quite a formidable game in terms of their threat through the long balls. They clearly missed Spinazzola, and that's going to be a question mark regardless. But I do think that this is a very cagey affair, so going for defenders makes a lot of sense. We saw, for example, like in the history of like Euro finals, that most teams actually get a clean sheet. So I do expect a clean sheet today, likely. Let's look at Yusuf's team. I like Trippier. Yep, makes sense to make Barella and Emerson in. Do you prefer Emerson over Bonucci, or are there kind of budget restrictions to this? That's the only question I'd ask. But I think Emerson still makes sense. Let's look at Aaron's team. Grealish in, Immobile out. Grealish comes on, makes a huge difference. I'm not going to deny that. I think Grealish simply is a top player. Of course, it's a bit of a gamble, but I do like it. I do like it. Let's look at Abdullah's team. All right, so you brought Maguire in, you've brought Chiellini in, so this is very Italy favored, I would say, and the captaincy kind of confirms that as well. I think, yeah, if you believe Italy's probably going to win a cagey affair, something like 1-0, then it's a very sensible team to have, because you have like four Italian defenders, and Di Lorenzo is going to have less attacking chances than Chiellini, so it definitely makes sense to have that. And then you also have Maguire in, which is totally fair in my opinion. Why Barella over Immobile? I'm just not a huge fan of what Immobile has contributed in the recent games. I think if you look at the Austria game, since then he's been quite poor in my opinion, in terms of being able to create chances for himself, in terms of having a good first touch, and all these kind of things as well. Thank you, Pinky Mirror, for joining us as well. Ahmed, I'm 12 point away from the first of my league. Would I still captain Kane? Um, I think. Do you have any differentials in your team, Ahmed? So I think that's the question I would ask. FPL guy says I'm thinking of going 5-4-1 or 4-4-2 as a clean sheet is likely for one of the teams, as explained in my video. But what do you think, bro? Yeah, I think a clean sheet is obviously very likely. 5-4-1 probably makes the most sense. I mean, if you think someone's going to have a clean sheet, right? Because that kind of gives you very good insulation. And then obviously, if you're expecting a clean sheet for one team, then two strikers is a bit ambitious as well. So yeah, I think it makes sense. Do you have a prediction on the score? Honestly, not really. I'm kind of feeling Italy 1-0 or England 2-1. Is there a clean? Sorry, your bench doesn't count. Yeah, most of the time, guys, your bench doesn't count. Like unless there's a freak situation, as I mentioned, where someone gets injured in the warm ups, which we would find out about regardless, guys. So your bench doesn't matter really at all. Subs wouldn't get you points, so why did he? Well, I mean, subs is different to your bench, right? So okay, he put Grealish in the bench. No, I think he was just showing me his transfers, and he's probably going to change the lineup of his teams. I have your same team in Chiellini. No, that's fair. That's fair enough. Who did you replace Chiellini with? Captain who? Maguire or Trippier? I think Trippier is a bit safer. I think Maguire is a bit more ambitious. That's what I would say in response to you. Just because I think so. Maguire, of course, like when he gets a set piece return, like that's 2 assists, right? Think about it. So like that's a lot more for Trippier to do to compete if Maguire scores. But I think the chances of Maguire scoring is probably a little bit lower than I would say Trippier getting assists off of a set piece. If we just look at individual set piece chances from the right hand side, and also another thing to think about is if Mount plays on the left, which he usually does for Chelsea, and we know Sterling can play on the right, then that actually changes things a little bit, right? Sterling would be on the right, and he might be drawing more fouls, which would be more beneficial to someone like Trippier on the right hand side. Emerson being managed is good. No, exactly, yeah. Because if Emerson gets subbed off after 60 minutes with a clean sheet, then he's a good pick. Hey, HS YouTube, how are you doing? Bro, he didn't do that. Sorry, guys, I'm a little bit confused there. I don't know if you guys can just elaborate on that. I'm just going to turn the light on in my room. It's getting dark, guys. Let's hope the game has a lot of light in it, though. Okay, please check message request, bro. Yep, we'll have a look at that in a second. Can you show your team? Yep, I can show my team. This is my team. I don't think I have any do I have a transfer left? No, I don't have any transfers left. So yeah, this is my team so far. I'm just gonna quickly respond to Twitter for a little bit, guys, if that's all right. And thank you guys for all the follows as well and all the subscriptions so far. It's been really, really heartwarming to kind of see the support you guys have given over the last few weeks. Like, really, really appreciative of it. Thank you guys so much for the support. Luke Shaw, captain, bad idea. I don't think it's a bad idea, to be honest. But, I mean, you are hedging on an English clean sheet. And what I would also say is that more people are going to likely favor, you know, like Kane as a captain. I think Kane is going to be the default captain across the world. Just give me one sec, guys. I'm just going to respond to an email that we got from a fan. Yep, Saka. I think Saka might not be a huge differential. I still prefer Grealish a little bit more as a differential pick. If you want someone to be in your team, to come off the bench and do well. I want to replace Immobile with Mount, but somehow I know that when I do that, Immobile will score. I mean, that's fine. Just keep Immobile then if you're fearful. Because, you know, you're going to look back at it and say, oh, I didn't trust in my gut. And, you know, fair enough, you can go for that. Thank you, Hafiz. Erectile dysfunction. God, I just read that. Fair enough. How to cap for the final. I think going safe is Kane. Going Italy is probably Insigne or Chiesa. Going a little ambitious is probably like an English defender for a clean sheet. Barella over Mount due to long shots. Not really due to long shots. I think Barella's actually very good at running in behind. I think he's also very good at free roaming and looking for pockets of space. He's also a decent chance creator as well. And then I think Mount has less set piece potential, just given the fact that Trippier is in the lineup. Who is best captain? I think I've argued. I've explained that slightly above. Barella or Immobile? I am personally a little bit more of a fan of Barella. Just I think Immobile, yeah, I think he's just dismayed me a little bit in this tournament. I think if you guys have been watching him since Austria, he's been quite poor. Digor, asks you guys unbiased score predictions. If you guys could all respond in chat, that'd be great. What about Mount as a captain? I don't like Mount as a captain because I think at best he's going to get an assist. I don't think he's really good to score. I might be proven wrong, but I think it's just ambitious to expect Mount to score. We already went through the statistics in terms of expected goals within the tournament, and the expected goals for Kane and Sterling are so high compared to any of the other English players that I feel like it's not really worth it to kind of gamble on Mount as a captain. Let's just quickly respond to Twitter comments though. Is Trips taking corners? I think so. I think Trips probably does take over. Octa. Insigne case of Sterling for captain. Okay. I think it really once again depends on what your position in the league is. If you're in the chat, I think I guess since you're going for a little bit of a differential, I think Chiesa makes sense. Will you be doing FPL content? Yes, I will. Thank you very much for being a new sub as well. Really appreciated. King captain makes sense. You're going for a 4-4-2. Fair enough. Going for Mount as well. I like the team. I think obviously it's like honestly it's a very safe team, and I think it makes sense. Like I like the Italian defensive picks. Shaw and Maguire, obviously we are missing out potentially on Trippier, which is the only question I'd have for you. Do you think you could fit Trippier into your team? That's the only other question I'd have, because I think Immobile has been a bit poor this tournament. But if you like, Immobile, then that's fair enough. We can go for that. RN's team. Sterling is captain on this one, or the other one with Grealish in. Let's have a look. So this was Sterling is captain on this one, or the other one with Grealish in. When you say the other one with Grealish in, like, who are we putting Grealish in place of? That's what I would like to know. But I think Sterling captain is a bit of a differential. I would say most people are going for Kane. Let's just respond to some of the message requests. Tarzan FC. All right. 3-5-2. Okay, so we're probably expecting a lot of goals from both teams, or at least one for each. This or Donna plus Maguire for Pickford, Barella. Interesting. So obviously very Italian dense. I like Donna plus Maguire more. Like, reason being because I think so Maguire has more set piece returns than the replacement that we'd have, right? And then I think Donnarumma is probably susceptible to more shots. And the way you have your team outlined as a 3-5-2, you're probably expecting both teams to score. And if both teams are going to score, then we're obviously expecting both keepers to be subjected to quite a few shots. And if that is the case, then I think Donnarumma makes more sense because he would probably be subjected to more of the shots. I feel like the fullbacks in this match will not contribute the way they usually do. No, that's a fair point. I think Shaw, for example, we saw play very defensively versus Denmark. I can't see defenders going forwards and leaving the defense exposed. No point in taking risks. Probably everyone going to stay in the back and defend their hearts out. So anyone who wants a 3-5-2 can justify yourself with this to some extent. Also, could give you more reason to not take Emerson as he'll be subbed out anyways. But okay, that's a fair point. I think if you think that, but if you think it's going to be a cagey affair, then aren't you expecting clean sheets? And if you're expecting for Emerson to be subbed out, then I would say that's a good thing, right? Because he probably gets a clean sheet for you. But I mean, I'm not opposed to 3-5-2. I think it makes sense as a formation. If you think that it'll be more of an open game and both teams will score, as has been the case in some of these semifinal games. I'm going to captain Kane. I like this team, to be honest. Honestly, I don't see any issues with sticking with this team. Maybe I would say this is the only thing I'd change. Maybe change Di Lorenzo for Bonucci/Chiellini because he could be a set piece threat. Let's respond to Vincent before we get back to the comments. I'll change Pickford to Donna, currently leading my league by 1 point. Ooh, okay, very interesting. So we're going for, okay, a little bit more Italian-based team, but then we have Kane captains, I guess, to hedge a little bit. I think that's a fair play, to be honest. I think that's a fair play. All right, let's go back to the comments really quickly, guys. All right, guys. So I think Southgate has brought in Trippier to contain Emerson. Fair point. And Walker could and that's what we were talking about. Because basically, what happens is when Italy plays with their current 4-4-3 structure, they attack as a five. So that five is going to be Chiesa on the right, and then you have Immobile, then you have Insigne, then you have Emerson, right? And then in that kind of situation, then it makes sense to have someone containing your team. I'm just going to keep my team here just so people can look at it in the meantime. So it makes sense to kind of peg that kind of front five of Italy in theory with a back five. Now, I do think that does give away a little bit more of the ball potentially, and I think that could be a bit of a threat in terms of how easy Italy are able to maybe dispossess the play and how limited of chances that Kane might get into the game. What name your FB? I'm sorry, I'm not. If you mean Twitter, then Total Tactics FB is our name. If you mean my actual name, my name is Francisco. Pickford or Donna? I prefer Donnarumma because I think he's going to be subjected to more shots. And I think if you're hedging on an English clean sheet, it makes sense to go with English defenders as opposed to Pickford. Insigne, Chiesa, Sterling captain. I kind of like Chiesa more. Team thoughts. Donna, Di Lorenzo / Emerson. I like Emerson over Di Lorenzo. Maguire, Stone, Shaw, Chiesa, Barella, Insigne, Sterling, Kane, Immobile. Thinking maybe to add Grealish, Mount. I like Grealish over Mount a little bit in my opinion. But obviously, I mean, there could really be a situation where, let's say, if England run away with the game, then maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe they don't bring Grealish into the team, if that makes sense. Luke Shaw or Trippier, because think about it, right? So, for example, when England were winning the game versus Denmark, Gareth Southgate actually ambitiously kind of subbed Grealish off. So that's what I would think about. Can you check Twitter? I can check Twitter in a second for sure. Who to bring in, Mount or Grealish? I think Grealish is a bigger differential than Mount. So if you want to go off that logic, then that makes sense. Kane, I think, will be strongly marked, so going for Sterling captaincy. That's a very fair point, Abir, and honestly, I don't think that's wrong at all. But I still think that, for example, Kane has a lot of potential to create sometimes from deep at times, and we saw, for example, like his kind of chance creation versus Denmark was pivotal to that kind of own goal chance. As an example, I have a 10-point lead in my league. Do you think leaving out Immobile will come back to bite me? I don't think so, right? Because like think about it. So if Immobile scores, we're probably saying that that's a differential of 4 points. So it's not a huge differential, right? I think it won't bite you. Also, this is my first time on your stream. Really love your videos. Thank you very much, Aaron. Really appreciate it. Jeff, let's have a look at Twitter. Maybe I'm missing some comments lately, so let's just respond to some of these comments from the bottom. So Vidas' team. I mean, yeah, Case is a solid captain choice. Sam Pap, please write me a response because I'm not on YouTube. Would you change anyone? All right, okay. Let's respond to Hafiz. I think Italy will win, but is it okay for me to put? Let's look at Jeff's team. So you brought Mountain. Very few English defenders, which is what I'm worried about. But I imagine you're probably gonna play Shaw and Stones, I guess. Raspadori is probably a budget option. I'm just thinking about it, and obviously you're bringing Sterling in. You're gonna keep Insigne as a captain. That's fair enough. Can you kind of explain to me what you're going to do with who's going to play? Are you going to put all three of these English players in? And if you do play all these three English players, are you dropping anyone? I would say neither to actually both of them. I'm going to captain Kane. What made some changes? What do you think, Captain Kane? I think that this is very reasonable as a team. 2-5-3. I guess, yeah, okay, okay. I guess you mean 3-5-2. Okay, so I guess you put Sterling on. Are you keeping these same defenders? So you're sure Italy is going to win? Is that what you're kind of saying? Um, Still not sure to cap. My OR is 52, and I don't want to take a risk. But I want higher. Still not sure who to cap. All right, let's have a look. Very interesting. Let's have a look. I think Chiesa makes sense. Honestly, I think Chiesa makes sense. Your three is Shaw, Emerson, Maguire. No, that's fair. I think those are the good defenders to pick. So yeah, I'm happy with the team that you've outlined. That makes more sense because I was kind of wondering if you wanted to actually keep those two Italian defenders. So let's respond to these comments, but let's quickly just go to YouTube very briefly. Bro, who's your cap? My captain will be Kane likely. In my country now, 2:30 a.m. GG, bro. Oh, okay. You get well, and you're gonna stay up for the game as well, aren't you? So you'll be here till at least 5-6 a.m. I'm second in my league, trailing by 1 point, and no one will have Kane as a captain. Should I go for a differential captain? Who could it be, Maguire or Shaw? I kind of like Shaw. Why no Immobile? I just feel like Immobile has a very poor tournament, and I feel like when he's playing versus a back five as well, which is an even bigger reason to drop him, the forward has more of a role to kind of run diagonally across the defenders, and therefore he'll have a little bit less impact on the game, in my opinion. So I think that's a reason why you'd want to drop Immobile. He's mostly been limited to long range shots, which you could also argue that Pickford struggles with, but still, like, being contained by a back five is very hard. Uh, is Trippier a better option in place of Stones? Because if he gets subbed off around 80 minutes, yes, I like Trippier over Stones, guys, just in general. 7 points away from the first, so have to go for a different captaincy. I think if you're not going for Kane, then yeah, I mean you could really go for Sterling, guys, if you don't want to go for Kane. But I think Kane is the safest one, and I think the more ambitious one is definitely going for Shaw, or Trippier. Um, and then I think Maguire is very, very, very ambitious, but it could be the biggest differential for sure. Maguire is like the strongest differential, I think. Backline question. Should I go Donna, Maguire, Stone, Shaw, Emerson, or switch out an English defender? And if so, which one for Di Lorenzo? No, I kind of like your team as it is, Digor. Because I feel like Di Lorenzo is like, it's, comparable to Donna in the sense that, he would only get points if he gets a clean sheet. Captaining whom in a differentiated push to jump back to the top of the as I say, so maybe probably Maguire if you're chasing a lot of points. Are you a fan of going for all four wing backs versus any of the center backs? No, because I think you have to look at how the teams attack, right? England clearly attack with their full backs. Italy clearly only attack with Emerson. I've barely seen Di Lorenzo cross the halfway field. Digor, that's a long warning for you. Good luck, man. CFC Krish, do you think Kane will score? Probably. I actually do think so, yes. Which is why I have him as a captain. Kichu Pushpan. Emerson is captain. It's an interesting one. So I guess you're gambling on Italy to lead early and then Emerson to be subbed off. It's ambitious, but I kind of like it. 15 points behind in my private league. Should I go all in for English defense and Captain Trippier? I think Captain Trippier isn't really all in. I actually think captaining Maguire could be more all in, potentially. I think Maguire is a very ambitious captain, guys. But it could pay off the most, is what I'm trying to say. Like, he's definitely a differential. Kane is probably the safest captaincy. So, like, if you're trying to like stay in the same place in your league, then probably Kane makes sense. Bonucci or Chiellini, the greater set piece threat. I think so far in the tournament we've seen it to be Bonucci likely. Should I bring in Donna instead of having Pickford? Yes, I think Donnarumma is probably going to have more saves than Pickford. So I kind of like Donnarumma more. And then if you believe that England will get a clean sheet, then I would go for the English defenders because they also contribute a bit more to the attack. Emerson over Di Lorenzo. Yes, I agree with that, Sandro. Won't Pickford have more shots on his goal as England will play more defensively? In theory, but I think England play a back five to control more of the ball, and it's very hard to actually get off a lot of shots versus a back five, right? Like think about when Belgium played versus uh actually that's not a good example. I mean, like if we look at Spain for example, like they were once again a team who looked to kind of control the ball. Of course, they played a 4-2-3, and then you kind of have Busquets dictating things. But ultimately, I do think England will try to retain possession and control of the game, and therefore, I don't really expect a back five to be really subject to too many shots. Like even in the Austria game, for example, and I could clearly say that Austria is a team that's much more diminished. Than England. You know, they really weren't subject to too many shots versus Italy. I don't think Italy also take that many shots as a team. Pick a balanced team. I mean, yeah, the team that I have is quite balanced. So I have like three English defenders and three Italian defenders. A little bit more priority in the English midfield. Sorry, the Italian midfield. But then I've gotten for a Kane captain and Sterling. I just feel like with these four, I've covered most of the bases for the goals, because the only other options that we're talking about are Immobile, who have put on the bench, and then Jorginho, if you think they'll get a penalty. But, you know, Italy hasn't drawn a penalty in the last year and a half, and simply put, Immobile has been very ineffective versus some of the better teams in the tournament. Thank you very much, Jeff, for the kind words. I want Italy to win, and I think they're more pragmatic in attack with Chiesa, Berlin, and Insigne. That's why I picked Donnarumma, but I had to pick English players anyways. Fair. Is it okay? Any changes, and who will be likely to captain in this match? I can't. I don't know why I can't see that. Let's have a look at Thomas's team. What do you think of this team? Many thanks, man. You're great. Thank you very much, Thomas, for the kind words. Interesting. I kind of like the 4-5-1 you're going for there. Ooh, this is a very, very ambitious team. Obviously, we're talking England clean sheet for sure. I mean, it could pay off. It could pay off crazily, honestly, because I think England have been a strong defense. Italy don't attack too much, and if you expect them to control the game with the back five, then I mean, it could be a crazy team. Are you going -12? Okay, so you're not sure about. I'm not sure about captaining Mount as well. I don't think he's a great differential pick, if I have to be completely honest. I also would prefer Trippier over Walker as well. So that's what I would say right now. I'm also not exactly sure what the exact transfers are, but -12 is, of course, super risky as well. So I would watch out for that too. 5 points behind in my league. So should I go for a different captain or a different? I think just different team in terms of like defense and etc. Because 5 points is very little to make. Backline question: should I go Donnarumma, Maguire, Stone, Shaw, Emerson, or switch out? Oh, sorry, I think I've responded to some of these comments. Just gonna quickly refresh my chat for a second. Should I take Di Lorenzo or Immobile? No, I still prefer Immobile over Di Lorenzo, to be honest. But I do like Trippier over. I like Trippier and Maguire over Di Lorenzo, to be honest. Like I think Di Lorenzo is, you know, it's kind of similar to getting Donnarumma on your team, and I'm a bit worried about that. What's the best formation should I play? Honestly, I think back five. I think Immobile's had a very ineffective tournament so far. And I feel like the chances he's been given have been very minimal. So I don't really expect him to score, in my humble opinion. So that's what I would say. Odds of Di Lorenzo being subbed off with a clean. I don't think Di Lorenzo gets subbed off. I think he likes to keep Di Lorenzo. So, for example, if you look at Italy versus Spain, Di Lorenzo was not subbed off at all. Emerson was subbed off, and then Di Lorenzo was moved on to the left back position, and then Di Lorenzo was defending there. So it seems like he likes to keep Di Lorenzo no matter what. Huge differential option. Sancho / Rashford as captain. That's crazy talk. I'm not going to respond to that. Kane cap. I think Kane cap is a little bit of a safer pick. I think most of the people in the world will be picking Kane as a captain. I think Sterling is is going to be a bit more of a differential. Yeah. Second in my league, should I go Shaw as captain or Kane? I think it really depends on how many points difference you have. If you're trying to chase quite a fair bit, then Shaw makes sense. If you got to choose one, Mount or Immobile. I think if your team is already very England heavy, then go for Mobile. But I kind of like Mount a bit more. Um, Luke Shaw or Trippier? I like Shaw for sure. Because I feel like Shaw does takes a lot of set pieces on the left. You could argue that actually because Sterling is on the right, then maybe Trippier gets more chances for set pieces. Um, but I think the captaincy choice once again really depends on what situation you have. I think the safest one is Kane, and then it's like maybe Sterling if you think England will win. But a lot of people will probably be going for Chiesa and Insigne, right? Chiesa probably the more direct option in terms of Italy for getting a specific goal, and then I think a big differential is going to be an English kind of fullback. And then Maguire is almost like a top tier, like I'd say a little bit over ambitious differential, but makes sense as well. Bench Immobile for a defender. I've done that personally, but you don't have to follow that. Mount versus Barella. I'm a bit more of a fan of Barella because Trippier is coming into the team, and I think Mount will therefore have a little bit less returns in terms of his game. I'm defending a healthy league in my league. I think just captain Kane then. Should I pull out Immobile and Sterling? I would captain Kane just for safety reasons, Kai. I'm just gonna put you in timeout just because we want to keep the spam to a minimum. I've mentioned Captain Kane already, so I'm just sorry. I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna time you out for a second. Um, Insigne or Chiesa captain? I prefer Chiesa just because he's a bit more direct, and I think Insigne will have to drop deeper today. Against the five-man defense, Immobile would end with at max one goal before subbing out, and the assist will come out of either Insigne, Barella, or Chiesa. Yeah, that's a fair point. Can you show your team? Yep, definitely I can show my team. This is my team. Quick question: which five at back teams did Italy face this Euro? Um, I don't think they have, right? Because I think Austria actually moved to a five back. Sorry, a four back, right? Austria versus Italy. I think Austria moved to a five back. I need to hold a lead in my league. Is Emerson the safest captain? Definitely not. I think Kane is the safest captain. No teams played a five back, I think. Yeah, I mean only Germany played a five back really, right? Austria played no. The reason why I say Austria was playing a five back was because Austria was playing a five back before they played versus Ukraine and Italy. So Austria were playing like if I can show you quickly, Austria versus Netherlands. What's going on? Austria versus North Macedonia as well could work. So you see Austria were playing a five back around this time. Um or to be honest, really a three back, but yeah. 1 point difference between me and the first place. Who should I captain? I'd probably say Kane and maybe have your differential in other positions. Austria was playing a four back. Yes, with Alaba. Check out your Twitter inbox. I'll have a look at that in a second. I'll pray for you, CSC Krish. 9 point lead in my league, same team as you, except Mount for Bonucci, whom to captain. I'd probably go for Kane if you're leading your league. Isn't Sterling a better captain shot than Kane? I don't think so, not necessarily. I think, for example, like, what are the chances that Italy have struggled most with, like, across the matches? I think, like, Lukaku was a big threat. We saw Doku do well, but that was really just to get into the box. Maybe you could argue that Sterling could do the same. But that's still, for example, drawing a penalty, which would be for Kane to score. We saw Arnautovic had a good game versus Italy as well. And I thought, Dani Olmo and even Morata when he came on were the kind of big threats, right, versus Italy. Uh, the winger threats like Oyarzabal, I mean, they had chances, but they didn't take them, arguably. But I don't see, for example, like England necessarily playing with a runner in behind. Maybe that they could play Sterling in behind Emerson. That's an interesting thing that we could talk about for sure. But I still think a lot of chances, like for example, the expected goals for England also show that more of the chances fall to Kane as well. So I still like Kane and then Sterling as a second priority. I desperately need a high returning English defender. Probably, I'd probably say Trippier is the safer option. I think Maguire is a bit more aggressive. But I still think you should have ideally both in your team: Trippier or Emerson or Di Lorenzo. I like Trippier, then Emerson, then Di Lorenzo in that order. If you had to pick an Italian captain, I'd probably pick Chiesa. Sterling gets clean sheet point if it's close. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. And obviously, I understand that Sterling gets more points for a goal. Um, but then also, predicting that Sterling will score is also a little bit of a different story, right? Top three differential option for captain. Probably Maguire. Uh, I'd probably say all three of the English defenders that we've been talking about all day. So like Shaw, Trippier, and Maguire. Sorry. Is vice captain option available today? Nope, there's no vice captain option. I mean, unless you're gonna put Rashford as your starting captain, but that is a little crazy to me. Does it make sense to take in Jorginho? I don't think. I mean, yes, Jorginho is Italy's penalty taker, but he hasn't taken a penalty for a long time for them, and not because he's not the penalty taker, but because Italy haven't earned a penalty in a long time. If Stone scores over Sean Maguire, oh, that's gonna be painful for a lot of us. But I mean, you can't predict everything, right? Like you could go for a four back, with England, but you know, like for example, Danielle has that team. That could be a bit crazy, but why not? Do you think Chiesa could get subbed earlier? No, because I think Chiesa has shown that he has a pretty strong gas tank. So yeah, I kind of responded already with the top three differential option for captain. Do you guys like the fact that England are playing a five back today? Like, how do you guys feel about that? I'm just gonna respond to some Twitter kind of comments as well in the meantime. Thanks, man, for keeping us company. See you in FPL. Thank you so much, Sam. We'll see you around. Thank you as well. I think if you're the same Sam from Discord as well, we've really appreciated your presence. Aaron, let's have a look at your final team. Let's go. I like it, starting captain, and then you also have Grealish for the differential. Very ambitious. I do like it. Would I change Shaw or for Trippier? No, no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I used limits last game, so I got back to old team with okay, I see what you mean. That's fair enough. Captaining Kane makes sense. Good luck with that. Sorry about the limitless situation as well. It's a bit unfortunate. Let's have a look at message requests. How about this? Need some advices. I think Italy will get penalty and Jorginho will finish it. Differential lineup. Sterling. I don't think there's too many differentials there, but I do like it. It's me. What about this? Okay, so are you kind of going with Stones in the hopes that he does better than Maguire, if that makes sense? Otherwise, I think it's a very reasonable team. I guess you went limitless last week, probably, but it's a nice team. Bro, sorry, I miss what you talk about my team on your stream. Should I transfer Bonucci or Trippier? Um, let's look at Raghav's team. Bonucci plus Chiellini or Bonucci plus Emerson. I'm liking the selection. Obviously, quite England strong at the back, and that's fair enough if you expect England to get a clean sheet. Um, yeah, I mean that's fair enough. Emerson makes sense as well. You're dropping Mobley, so I guess yeah, you are very England geared, and that's fair enough. I think that makes sense. That's a good team to have. Braden's team. All right, so we have Case a captain. That's very interesting. I like it. I like the team. I don't think there's any really weaknesses here, to be honest. I like also Immobile and Mount kind of off the bench. It makes sense just because of the way that Trippier has changed the dynamic of things as well. Centauri's. I'm leading my league by 15 points. Will this be a safe selection team? Also, should I sub Stones in for Barella? Let's say let's just even out the. I think Stones in could help, yeah, just to even out the selection of players. You know, I agree with that, especially since you're holding on to a massive lead. Draw on points in the league for the first position. What do you think about the team captaincy? And should I get in Trippier instead of Maguire? No, I think Maguire is still probably priority. If anything, I'd drop Mount for Trippier, to be honest. That's my personal opinion. First place from Juanito. And 7 points ahead in league. Is Kane a good I think yeah. Like if you're leading your leagues, guys, like Kane makes sense as an option. I think the rest of the team is very solid as well. So happy with that. Obviously, that's literally the same team that I'm going to be playing. So makes sense. All right, guys. Let's just quickly go back to the YouTube chat for a quick second. Yeah, so I've responded to the Twitter message requests. Luis Martin's what's boring. If Stones scores over Sean Maguire, do you think Kesa could get subbed? Okay, I think I responded to that already. Apologies about that. Oh, sorry, you're responding boring to the 5 back, right? No, that's fair enough. I think it is sensible. Of course, it's a final, but it's going to be a very cagey affair, and that could be very beneficial in terms of, us maybe having some defenders who get subbed off early as well. That kind of approach could be interesting. Is 4 in defense too much with Emerson? I mean, it's not too much. Like, honestly, I can see a reality where England do get all the clean sheets. And then on top of that, even if you don't expect clean sheets, a lot of those English defenders could be quintessential for English goals, right? So, yeah. You wish Mancini would tell us if you do the Emerson sub again. Second in my league, first is 13 points away. What differential would you pick? Probably try to create a differential in terms of the captain. I think most people are going to be England favored, so the more Italians you have, that's going to be a little bit more differential wise, just in terms of the individual players. But then, if you still think England will win, then obviously maybe captain an English defender. I think England will lose in the middle. Yeah, I mean that's going to be natural, right? To the back five. It leaves a lot of, I think press. It leaves a lot of stress in terms of the players, in terms of kind of keeping the ball and organizing it through the press. So, for example, like if we saw in the Champions League final, Chelsea have a little bit less of the ball, but it really depends on how well you think the English team will be able to kind of create plays off the ball, and what happens when the ball kind of falls in transition, and whether you think the Italian defense can be dispossessed a little bit easier, or rather the midfield. Barella or Immobile, I kind of like Barella a bit more. Emerson or Stones, I think if you're too heavily kind of stacked on English defenders, then Emerson makes sense. Out of those three, which two? Emerson, Di Lorenzo, and Trippier. I like Trippier than Emerson than Di Lorenzo. Maguire captain, yeah, that's a huge differential if you guys want to go for it. 5 English defenders. I mean, honestly, if England gets a clean sheet, you'll be going straight to the top. But it is very ambitious. I mean, that's just, it goes without saying. Will Kane be subbed off? I don't think Kane will be subbed off. It's a final. Like he's literally gonna play until the very end, in my opinion. Unless he has a shocker game or he gets injured, Pick 2 to bench: Barella, Bonucci, Emerson, Maguire, Trippier. Tough one here. Probably. I don't know what the rest of your team is, but I'd probably bench Bonucci and Barella. too risky to go with five English defenders. I think it is a bit risky, guys. Come on, let's be honest here. I expect Insigne Case scores. Yeah, agree with that. Trippier captain for the win. Good luck with that, guys. I mean, I think who to captain, that's a question that's been asked a lot of times. But once again, Kane captain if you're on the top of your league. If you're kind of trying to catch up, maybe go for someone like Sterling. If you're very far down, then try to go for an English defender or maybe for like an Italian attacker, right? Or even if you think Italy will win, then yeah, I mean, Italy attacker is already a good differential. Pick two out of these. I think I've already responded to that. So I would say Emerson, then Trippier, then Lorenzo. Will our bench come into use at all? Not really, because I think all our players should be starting, right? Unless you guys have started with a player like Jack Grealish, for example, who will come off the bench no matter what. Daryl, thanks again for the stream. Any tactical reasons, in your opinion, for Italy not drawing too many pens despite having pretty tricky attackers? Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think it's simply due to the fact that, first of all, like I think Immobile is the one who gets the most touches in the box. And I would say he's not very technical, to be honest, as a player. Like I don't see him draw too many penalties himself, especially versus better defenses. I think Insigne also plays a bit more of a deeper role sometimes when he's playing versus a better team, and therefore he doesn't earn as many penalties as you'd expect him to. Um, and then I think Chiesa is actually pretty good at drawing penalties, but then they were previously playing with Berardi for quite a fair bit. So I think, as well as that, simply I think Italy actually are very good at finishing their chances. Like, um, most of the time their chances are built through like passing through someone in the spaces and in between the lines. And I think for that reason, you don't really see too many penalties being drawn from Italy. And also, yeah, any more questions, guys, just please ask them in the chat. So I'm not going to respond to any Twitter questions right now because there's 5 minutes left. And it's just better for me to spend this time on the comments with you guys just to discuss any kind of final questions you guys have. But I mean, I agree with you. Italy have a lot of pretty tricky attackers, like that's not false at all. Is Trippier really nailed on for set pieces? I think so, yeah. I mean, every time I've seen Trippier play, he's in general the set piece taker on the right hand side. I think Gareth Southgate, if you looked at his comments in previous matches, has been very kind of appreciative of what Trippier brings to the team, especially from a set piece point of view. He was actually quite critical of England and their set pieces earlier on in the tournament, and this was before Trippier was playing some of the games as well. So I think he was quite critical in maybe match day 2, although I'm not exactly sure. Thank you very much, Daryl, as well. Yeah, the FPL content will definitely try to kind of keep this level as well. And obviously, we're dealing with 20 teams in the Premier League, and things will change from day to day. But we hope to make sure that we provide that kind of tactical content to you guys as well. So, Coolster, thank you so much, Coolster. Top of my league, thanks to you. Honestly, thank you as well thank you guys as well. Honestly, for staying around, it's been really appreciated to have you guys around. Like I can't say enough how awesome the support has been. Like I really didn't expect the channel to kind of improve and grow so much during this time, and really it's just thanks to you guys who have stayed around and have shown appreciation through the community panel and also through the YouTube videos. I hope you guys enjoy the game as well, regardless of whether you're supporting Italy or England. If you're Italian or English or supporting either, best of luck to you guys. If you guys are unbiased, let's hope for a great game of football. Maguire versus Shaw versus Trippier, captain who? I mean, Rohit, I know you're going for 5 English defenders, so honestly, if you're doing that, then I think just go for Trippier, because it's a bit safer, because you're already taking such a gamble with the 5 defenders. Is it worth to take a -4 when down 13 points in your league from top spot? I don't think so. Shaw or Case, the captain, I'm 3. Yeah, I guess you're 3 points behind. Is that what you mean? Yep, that makes sense. I think Shaw captain is pretty interesting. That could really send you over the top. Italy differentials for captain, definitely Case, then Insigne, in my opinion. I wouldn't really pick any other captains. Crazy scenario could obviously be like Emerson getting subbed off early, but I don't really expect that too much. And also just a general question, guys, as well. Like, would you guys like me to do like not for this match specifically, but in the future, would you guys like to do watch along streams as well? Are you guys interested in that kind of content? Or if you guys are interested in any other sort of content, like could you guys let us know what that would be as well, what that would entail? Because I was thinking as well in terms of in the future creating some video essays on football. some longer form videos where it's, I don't know if you guys have seen that type of content on YouTube, but just more stuff focused towards like um, more detailed, like analytical stats related, like football stories that we can kind of cover in more depth. Maybe when we're rating between different players or different tactical styles and that kind of thing. Yeah, it would definitely help the channel grow. I mean, let me know if you guys think that's the right option, though, of course. Like, I don't know if you guys are a big fan of watch alongs, to be honest. We did a few in the past, but it was interesting. Sterling as a captain, I think it makes sense if you're kind of trailing your league by just a little bit, because Sterling, I think, could be a bit of a difference maker compared to Kane. Down 13 in league captain, Trippier or Sterling. I mean, if you're down 13, I think you need to chase quite a bit, so I think Trippier makes sense. That would be interesting, would definitely help your channel grow, but his football commentary, I mean, does it need a license? It would probably be a situation where, let's say, like, you'd watch the stream at the same time as me, and I would have it blacked out, and we would just interact in the chat, and you'd see my faces and interact with that while you guys watch the match as well, and maybe mute the commentators, although I don't know if that's too interesting for you guys. Football stories and things about transfers would be good too. Yeah, no, definitely. I think we could definitely look into that and kind of maybe cover some stories about some players that are a bit, less well known, and even some coaches as well. Especially if, let's say, some players are about to join the EPL or other things like that. Thank you very much, Reginald, as well. Thanks for the kind words. Oops, apologies. But yeah, we have 2 minutes left to the deadline, guys. Honestly, just for all you guys, I hope you guys, while you've been supporting our content and kind of watching everything, that I hope you guys have done extremely well. If you guys can give us a subscription as well, if you've done that, if you haven't done that already, that'd be really appreciated. And also check out some of our other YouTube videos. We try to insert as many stats as possible. Yeah, you can do watch alongs and comment on players for FPL. No, I can definitely, I think those types of videos will make sense. I think we'll make less more like, we'll add some more themed videos in terms of who could be secret underdog picks, and kind of do very detailed videos potentially on a specific player or a specific team that we think will kind of improve as the season goes on. Like, for example, I think last year actually we were covering Everton from the start because I actually picked DCL like in the first week, as a wild, like, because I wild carded my team after the first game week because I had Martial, and I could already tell it was one of those Martial seasons that was going to be terrible. And then obviously Everton had a miracle kind of run at the start of the first few weeks in the EPL before they kind of fell off. So those kind of things that we could maybe look into, especially like new storylines that we can cover for you guys. So anyways, the game has started, so I'm going to leave you guys to it. Best of luck to whomever you support. Hope you guys all enjoy a fantastic game of football, and honestly, take care and have a wonderful weekend night as well. Take care, guys.